beautiful people? I am BuddhaCat, and welcome to our first episode of our brand new podcast. We have a lot of people here in this first episode because we're all pretty excited about it. We have Alltheway J, and we have DPD. We have Katie Reid listening in. She was going to talk, but she's got some storms in the area, so she's listening in, but she's here in spirit. And we have KB, also known as KnowBuddies LP. We have Supernova, and we have Yomi Kibagami. Hi, guys. Hello. What up? So in this first episode, each episode we're going to be talking about a different topic, and whether we stay on topic or not, that's kind of up for discussion. But this first topic that we're going to talk about today, guys, is indie games, and is the future of the industry being shaped by it? Is indie games going to shape the future of? Oh, there's that first awkward moment. That's my stream.
We have a blipper reel.
So our first topic is going to be is indie games shaping the future of the gaming industry. Now, a lot of people could say yes, because of how fast indie games are coming out, thanks to things like Steam software, Steam Greenlight making it possible, and just like things like, Game Maker Studio, which is a free piece of software, very powerful piece of software, which you're able to make games on and then just, try to get it up on Steam or just give it away for free. But then there are things like esports that are just completely blowing up. In fact, I just read something that by 2018, the esports industry alone is going to be around $1.9 billion by the end of 2018. I mean, that is a big industry, just that right there. And esports is mainly dominated by first-person shooters, games like League of Legends. So, and those games are obviously not indie games. So I don't know. Do you guys have any kind of opening things that you want to say right off the bat?
Well, the indie game scene has exploded the past few years.
Yeah, I agree.
I just got back from PAX this last weekend, and 4 years ago when I was there, they had one little corner of with the PAX 10 and just a few indie games there. And this year, it was all over the expo hall, and everywhere was indie games.
Yeah, I mean, it really is blowing up. And I feel that people who used to only play games that, big blockbuster games, like I call them, I feel like people who mainly played those are now paying more attention to indie games, because indie games are, these big studios keep pumping out the same games over and over and over, and still to this day doing that. And
Call of Duty series.
Exactly.
Yeah, the problem is, though, it keeps making money, and people keep buying it.
Yeah,
and
but
I'll buy it regardless.
Yeah,
Call of Duty 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are all pretty much the same game, and I loved them all.
Yeah, but just because you're putting them on the moon doesn't make it a different game. I don't understand that. I really don't. I don't know. Maybe it's just, we need that still in the gaming industry. We need that mindless sort of. I mean, I'm not calling those games mindless. I mean, it does take a lot of skill and everything, but
and they know it sells.
Yeah, they do.
So they make the games and it sells, and they will do good. Their Final Fantasy 15 is coming out in November, and I'm gonna buy that game.
Yep, I am too.
15 of them, and they're big, awesome games.
And they're all roughly the same. I mean, there's different storylines and stuff, but essentially it's the same game that's just evolved with time. Doesn't make it bad. It's just that's what it is.
But like the indie scene, you get different types of things from Papers, Please.
Right. Yeah.
You're an immigration officer letting people into the country.
Yeah, I feel like with indie games, it's treated more as an art than it is like a business, a business model. I mean, with games or just developers like Square Enix and Activision, EA, those people spend billions of dollars on marketing alone, whereas indie gamers or indie game developers, they don't have that, obviously. So it's more of a word of mouth, and they build their platform based on respect and the art form. So games like Papers, Please, it could have bombed. I mean, there's not, there wasn't a high demand for a game like that. So there weren't a lot of people saying, I wish I could be an immigration officer in a game. But people are interested by it.
Game.
Exactly. People are interested by it because it's different. It's a different kind of experience,
Right. And unfortunately, I don't think bigger studios, because they have so much infrastructure behind it and so many employees and so many, just different, parts of the industry and parts of the company, they can't always, and they usually don't, take risks like that, because if they make a bad bet, they can bankrupt the company, and that's the problem. That's why they keep putting out the same stuff over and over again, because it sells and because people do want it. And like the biggest complaint about Call of Duty, the two biggest complaints is always it's too much like the old one, or if they do something different, they say, well, this isn't actually Call of Duty because it's nothing like the old one, so they can't win, but people still keep buying it.
Yeah. But then you look at I can't think of the studio who did it. Who did Far Cry? I can't think of who it is.
Oh, Far Cry.
Because they made that was a big gamble that they did, making it primal, that was a huge
yes and
risk.
no, because what I've seen of it, it's a very similar map to the previous game, Far Cry 4. So it's essentially the same game but a different setting. Kind of like Assassin's Creed, where it's not like you're not going from, say, Solitaire to Call of Duty. You're just going from, you're playing, 5-card stud poker to Texas Hold'em. It's pretty much the same thing. It's just slightly different gameplay.
And I think Far Cry was created by one company, and then Ubisoft developed it or published it.
But
it was Crytek that originally, I think, probably pitched their idea or something, and Ubisoft was like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, Ubisoft did Assassin's Creed too, right? I think.
Yeah. Watch Dogs.
Yeah.
The thing with indie games though, is that it's so difficult for them to get their games out on console, which is obviously a really big part of.
Not as much anymore. I mean, that's still a huge hurdle, but it's getting better year by year.
Yeah, I mean,
I know, and it's not like they can afford or have the resources to be able to, print their games off and send them to stores and things like that.
Yeah, well, that's why a lot like stuff like Xbox Live Arcade or the PSN stuff, you can actually buy games directly through. Like I think Cuphead's coming out soon. That thing's the media darling, and it looks awesome.
Oh my god!
I don't know if it's going to have an actual physical copy you can buy.
No, that's what I was going to say. Like
there is.
Oh, go ahead, DPD. Go ahead.
There was one physical indie game you can buy. I think it was called Shovel Knight.
Yep.
Due to popular demand, they're released in stores, and they even have an amiibo now for Shovel Knight.
Yep. Yeah, it's
popular.
Yeah, things like that where an indie game essentially becomes mainstream. That's the lines kind of get blurred. Like even we were just right before the podcast record, we were talking about Minecraft, which is.
Well, yeah.
It's kind of hard to say. Is it an indie game now?
It was.
Exactly.
Yeah, it started as one.
But now it's owned by Microsoft.
1.5 billion? Was that the number?
Yep.
A
Billion?
lot of merch in stores.
Yeah. Jeez, man. I mean, and Notch walked away from it. I'm pretty sure he has nothing to do with it anymore.
He has absolutely nothing to do with it now.
Yep, he completely walked away. And he devoted his time now to Scroll. Well, it was at the time Scrolls. I don't know what he's working on now. I know he was working on
development on that. I think like 2015 or 2014.
Yeah.
No, they bought 2014 and they stopped development on that last year.
Yeah. A lot of things are making indie games more noticeable now. Not just, kind of with Nova saying that it is hard to get it on consoles. It is getting easier now thanks to like PlayStation now. PlayStation's store. And then I don't know what it's called. Is it PlayStation Network? Is that what the name of their stores, or just PlayStation Store?
Yeah, PlayStation Network.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
for Nintendo, they're even promoting indie games as well.
That's right.
They hold events called Nindies, where indie developers can show off their games and stuff. Yeah, they just had it last week, I think.
Yep. That is
Xbox
huge.
Actually did the same thing with. I remember when Xbox 360 came out, and they had the thing where people can upload games and
yeah.
I remember
Live
that.
Arcade was the summer of the
the Live Arcade, and it didn't last too long because I think things were getting uploaded that shouldn't be.
Right. But yeah, that, I mean, like Super Meat Boy, like they relied on. I mean, there's even a movie called the Indie Game or Indie Games or something like that. You can get it on Steam. And it's on Netflix right now too. So anybody who hasn't watched it, I totally recommend it. It's a great movie. But they focus on Fez, Super Meat Boy, and the developer of Braid, which is Jonathan Blow. He also did The Witness. But yeah, like, you know, you could see them in that movie panicking, just getting on Xbox Arcade, because they even said, like, if we don't get this, we're done. Because I mean, we were trying to. Oh yeah, you told me it was 2012 when Steam Greenlight came out, and I think Super Meat Boy came out before then. I can't remember. I don't know. But, I mean, so many things are making it possible now. Like, you know, DPD said, you know, they're doing Nindies now on Nintendo's store or shop, whatever they call it.
Conference, I think.
And then, you know, there's just the giant, massive explosion of YouTubers and streamers of small and big alike playing indie games. I mean, it's, you know, people like Jacksepticeye who mainly focus on indie games. You know, if he plays one of your games, you're guaranteed to at least get a few heads turned. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, may not succeed, but
I think that's one of the big pushes in the indie industry is the streamers and YouTubers, because
look at
years
Keymailer.
ago when it wasn't big, they wouldn't get their name out there.
Yeah.
Like stuff like Papers, Please, Stanley Parable wouldn't have gotten noticed because they're so small and they don't have the money to advertise.
Yep,
that's true.
Yeah,
and it's hard to describe. Like, how do you describe the Stanley Parable to somebody, like what they call an elevator pitch? 30 seconds. Tell me about the game. You're Mario and you save the princess and you defeat Bowser.
Right.
Cool. I got it. It's paper. Stanley Parable. Well, you're in an office. No.
Yeah. It's very difficult.
It's a
but
stupid concept. I love the game, but it's a stupid concept. But it's genius.
Yep. I guess the question is then, do you think indie games are completely shaping? Well, I wouldn't say completely, but I mean, let's say the focus right now, for just this current conversation, is by 2018. Do you think the indie game scene will mainly be dominating the gaming industry? Do you think?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
But with a caveat, where I see it taking the same shape as media has the last 5-10 years, where the networks are still huge. You know, the NBC, CBS, ABC, they're still huge and they have the biggest audience, but not the younger generation.
Right.
Like, most people don't pay for cable; they pay for internet. You know, I'm of the older-ish generation. I'm kind of halfway between, but I haven't had TV in probably say 10 years. I haven't a landline this century. Just to put things in perspective. And it's just the tools, and biggest thing is going to be distribution of getting your message out there, where, you know, way back, you know, hundreds of years ago, only very, very rich people could afford books, and knowledge was very, very coveted, and most people couldn't read because they didn't need to. Then the printing press came out and boom, knowledge is everywhere. We're doing a similar revolution now with just media in general, where you're never going to have YouTube be bigger than, or any YouTube person be bigger than any show really on a major network, but you're going to have a lot more smaller people being seen by more people than just same people watching the same 3 networks. You're having a large group of people watching a large other group of people type thing. And I think the game market's going to go the exact same way, where you're still going to have the giant Call of Duties, but you're also going to, in Minecraft, just it's a anomaly. That's probably not going to happen again. If it does, that'd be awesome, but that's an anomaly. But you're going to have a lot more smaller games, quality games that can take risks because they're not they don't have the liability of a major company.
Well, do you think then people like Ubisoft, Activision, EA, do you think that they'll be changing their business model? You know,
somewhat. I mean, look at Sony. They essentially bought No Man's Sky, which is the indie darling.
Right. Yep.
And they're like, oh, this is going to be big. Let's own this. And I think they're going to see a lot of that, and some people will be glad to jump on that. Some people will be scared and won't do it because they don't want to sell out. And some people, I think a majority of them are not going to want to quote unquote sell out, but have to in order to get the game published and made because they have no other way to. I mean, Kickstarter and all the other stuff are great, but it doesn't work for everybody.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. It's very, very hard. I mean, later on in this podcast, a few days ago, I mean, you guys will be hearing it, but a few days ago, we spoke to Vincent from, who was the developer, kind of the mastermind of Woven, and, he was kind of going over that a little bit too. I mean, distribution was the hard thing, and I mean, yeah, of course, raising money and everything, but that's even becoming easier now. But, distribution was the hardest thing for indies.
Even music too, like indie music.
Right.
Like you being a musician.
But digital downloads, digital downloads takes care of that now. I mean,
exactly.
I would say majority of us gamers now buy our games digitally. I don't even go to GameStop really anymore. I very, very rarely, unless I need a cord or something, or like, my controller broke or whatever. I very, very rarely, or if I if I want to reserve a game that I really care about, like No Man's Sky, I went there, I bought it, like Overwatch, same thing. But very rarely. I mainly get my games on console. I get it on PlayStation Store, even on the Wii U. I get it on Nintendo's store. And then, of course, most of my games, I have about 200 of them, and it's all bought on Steam. And I would say that's probably, I think it's safe to say that it's probably most gamers who do that now.
Yeah, and it might be quite obvious, but Steam has done wonderful things for the indie scene, and without it, it just absolutely would not be in the same place it is today.
Oh God,
no.
Steam's been around since I think I said 2002, and
somewhere around there, yeah.
And it was created by an indie developer, and so I think they had that plan in place from the beginning. It may not have been that apparent.
It's just
then.
Hard to think of Valve as an indie developer nowadays, but yeah.
I know, but at the time they were.
Just like Minecraft was an indie game.
Exactly.
The time. And it's like, yeah.
It's just the fact that, with exceptions, obviously, that these AAA games like Overwatch and Skyrim, Fallout, and things like that are just generally are better games as far as.
That's more subjective. Well, yeah. I mean, larger in scope and more polished, I can agree with.
Yes, and it's just that they have. Based on their advertising, and they have all these amazing cinematics and things, and that's the bit. Like that's just a great way to hype people up and make them buy it, and that's just it can't happen.
Bethesda is still technically indie. I think I could be wrong.
I think
really
that's where the definitions kind of like. I'm not sure if indie is going to be a big player in 2018 because are we going to even know what indie is anymore?
Yeah, indie. I mean, when people ask me what is an indie game, and I say it's developed, it means it was developed by an indie developer, and then they say, well, what is an indie developer? And then my definition, and it's a broad spectrum. I think a lot of people have a lot of different definitions, but usually meet in the middle, which is. It's developed by a small team with very little money. They're not being backed by, huge publishers, like Activision or EA, or 2K or I don't know whoever, Microsoft, whatever. And they do whatever they can, to get their passion out into the open, And I guess. I don't know if you guys have a different definition or not, but...
Well, the indie just really means independent.
Right. It's an independent studio.
Others. So, I'm not sure how independent Bethesda is. I mean, I guess it is. It relies on itself. And
then I would argue that implies or infers that those working at a larger studio don't have a passion for what they're doing, when sure, a ton of them do. So.
Oh, yeah.
That's where it gets real muddy. So,
it does, yeah.
like we get an argument constantly where I'm all for indie. I'm like, I don't care if it's indie or a big publisher. Is it a good game? Like, I don't give them a pass because, or even any leeway. If the game's not good, the game's not good. It's like they didn't have any money. Cool. This game's still not good.
But yeah, we were just talking about Epic Games and how it started off as an indie studio, and now it's bigger. And anyway, so I don't think. Yes, they may have passion, like some of these bigger studios. They probably have passions for the projects and stuff, but I think it's a different kind of passion. I think the people developing it, the art directors and stuff, those are the people with passion, like the smaller guys, down the totem pole. I think the people up top, I don't know if they do have much passion. I'm not saying it as a fact or as even my opinion. I'm just saying I find it kind of hard for them to do that because I put it in the perspective of the music industry where I worked at a major record label and those people did not care about those projects. They did not care about those artists. The people like me who were down in the totem pole did though, because we worked with them. We got on the nitty gritty of everything. So I don't know.
But if you go to a restaurant, do you care if the cook's happy or not, as long as the food is sanitary and tastes good?
Good point. Yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, if I enjoy the game, then I enjoy the game. Mm-hmm. But I just said all that because you just brought up that does that define indie?
Right. It's just a hard thing to define. That's why.
Yeah. Well, if you look at a lot of the big companies, there's been a lot of stories about some of the big people leaving. Like you were talking about Epic Games. Mm-hmm. Cliff Bleszinski, one of the directors of Gears of War series, left that company and started Boss Key Productions.
Right. Yep.
And they're making a free-to-play shooter, which I believe is Lawbreakers, which is coming out soon.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So they're leaving these big companies and they're key players on huge games.
I mean, yeah.
To focus on little games and stuff like that, and their own things.
A lot of people, the graphics are
right.
the most important things.
Yep.
Which indie developers are, indie developers, they can't do that. So
they
miss out on that market.
It's hard. Yep. And that's a great point. I mean, it really is. And there are, there's a name for those types of people that my friend used to call them, and I can't say it here because we were trying to keep it family friendly, but there's those people out there who only care about graphics. And actually that kind of reminds me of something, because it's not just indie games that are shaping the gaming industry right now. Like earlier I mentioned esports, which is by the end of 2018, $1.9 billion industry, and that alone. But also, like, the future is here, guys. We are literally experiencing things that we dreamt of as kids, and that is VR. Virtual reality is here, and is here now, and people are drooling at it. I mean, it's even like, for like the past 4 or 5 Game Informer issues I've had, virtual reality has taken up at least 5-6 pages, It's a huge deal, and it's not cheap to make a virtual reality game.
Nope.
But I mean, I have noticed that a lot of indie developers have been hopping on to virtual reality, but they're not clean, crisp. Kind of like what Nova was saying, people who really care about the graphics. So the people who can afford that, those are the people that are gonna make it in the virtual reality side of the gaming industry. And I feel like that is a huge downside, to indie gamers or indie developers. They're gonna miss out on that opportunity.
Right now,
that could be argued,
on the VR scene, most of the games are, I think, pretty much indie type games because there are no AAA games right now on VR.
That's
They're
true.
all little tech demo things and things like that don't really have any meat to them, but they're fun to play.
Yeah, but do you think that in the future, right? Because we are talking about the future of the gaming industry. Do you think in the future it's going to stay that way?
I don't think VR is the future.
Yeah, no, me neither. I think it's going to be just another one of those. Do you remember
it's going to be 3D TVs all over
yeah,
again.
Right. That's exactly what I was going to say. You took the words out of my mouth. and no one buys them anymore.
Yeah, there's enough of a hurdle to get people to play PC games because they have to get the right PC, the right setup, the right this.
Yep.
It's a pain to get them to get that going. They rather just grab a console, pop in a disc, pick up the controller, and play.
Yep.
It's not as immersive. It's not as high quality experience, but it's so much easier.
Yeah,
That's where I
With-
think,
with-
if anything, with the VR scene, the PlayStation VR would be
That's the
where
one I
to
think
market
that has the
things.
best shot. I think. I think the HTC Vive kicks the PSVR and everything I've read, but
Oh, it does, but it's not as accessible because you need a beast of a computer
exactly.
and
Exactly.
an $800 headset.
And Jay, what,
Betamax
Yeah,
is
and then
way
all the
better than
sensors
VHS.
and everything. It's crazy. You need like a whole room to use.
yeah. Yeah.
Yep. No,
But-
there's a Microsoft store near me, and I've tried the Vive, and they have a large sectioned, a large area sectioned off, and the guy has to hold the cable for you the whole
Yeah.
time, so you don't trip and hurt yourself.
The technology
like
is
Connect.
yeah. The technology is undeniably amazing though. That people
No,
have
it
managed
is.
to do
It's a
this.
great gimmick, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Not
there's
You know what?
forever.
there's a bunch of other things gonna come into VR. I mean, there's people who read Ready Player One kind of have an idea of it. There's people already using this technology in the army and the military, and there's actually a company right now on Kickstarter called the Tesla Suit, and that's haptic suits, and they already have haptic gloves, which are, they're trying to make them as inexpensive as possible, but still get that feeling. And if you guys, anybody listening who doesn't know what I'm talking about, basically, like, if you put on a haptic suit and you're playing a game and you get punched, the haptic suit would respond, and it would, a bunch of little tiny micro bead type things would react to that same exact area, and it would
That'd
feel
be
like you
so
got
awesome.
punched. So if you got if you got shot in a game, it would do it like pretty hard. It obviously wouldn't
scary.
hurt you, but you'd get like a little jolt to you.
That'd be awesome.
And if you
Bring
picked
out
up-
the pain.
but not for the masses yet, at least.
I know. Yep, I know. But I feel like there's so many things changing in the gaming industry that to just
Agreed. I think AR is the future, if anything, but that's different. Not Pokemon AR.
I
actual
agree.
AR.
I agree too.
Because a lot of people too, if you put something on your face and you can't see anything around you or hear anything around you, it's very disconcerting. It's
Yeah.
you
agree.
feel vulnerable. You just don't like it. And AR, you can actually see around you. And if you saw the HoloLens demos that Microsoft put out, oh my God, I want one.
Really?
And it's $3,000 for the demo unit, and I was honestly
my God.
considering should I sell some stock to buy this? I have no use for it, but I want it that bad.
I agree. I agree.
We see things like this all the time, though. Do you
Oh, yeah.
remember, like, Google Glass as well as another thing?
Yep.
And I have friends
And
who have
that's-
that and love it, and they will not give it up. But it's not for the masses.
No, it's not.
Just like I talk to my house, most people think I'm crazy, but
There's a few games out there that's kind of like this, but there's one in particular I'm thinking of. It's called Black Watchman. And I got it around the time it came out, and I kind of stopped playing it, so I kind of lost track of where it's at. But basically, the concept is the game itself is actually in real life, and you just basically use the actual PC game as your dashboard, as like a tool. And so in the game you play, you're like an agent, kind of like an X-Files like agent. There's all this crap going on in the world, and it's your job to figure it out and to solve it and to stop it. And you have to use everything at your disposal. The internet, libraries. There are times where they ask you to go to certain coordinates. They mail you things. Like they mailed me, I think it's called a Hell Dollar. It's like this Chinese thing where you pay some sort of spirit, and I don't know. Anyway, so I got one of these Hell Dollars, but it makes you feel like you're part of something that's kind of bigger, kind of like Pokemon Go in a way. Where you play in real life. It forces you to walk around and do something outside of a screen. And I feel like that too is kind of where the gaming industry is headed. Not maybe a huge chunk of it, but definitely a small niche.
I would say that's where a lot of the world's heading, where everything's going to be virtual and digital and changing the way society works and all that fun stuff. So
Well, exactly. That's kind of what I was saying earlier. I know that not all of us can afford an Oculus Rift right now, or the freaking $1,000 computer to harness it.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like that is definitely where we're gonna be headed. I think it's gonna get. I mean, look at the PlayStation 4. When that first came out, wasn't that like $600 or $500 or $600?
Yep.
I think it was like
Around
500.
$499, I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah,
$4.99.
PS4.
I
Sounds
know
about
it's
right.
cheaper than the Xbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
Yeah.
And now look at it, $299, and the Xbox, they have one that's $199, and the Wii U, or yeah, the Wii, I think no, the Wii U was really expensive when it came out, and then they dropped the price because they were like, no one's ever. gonna pay this.
$349 to $299.
Yep. So the same thing is going to happen with Oculus Rift. Same thing is going to happen to everything else. As soon as they figure out a cheaper alternative to the methods, and and then when they realize that not enough people are buying it, they're going to be like, we've got to figure something out.
The Wii came out, it was the first kind of console to use this wireless sort of like move around thing, and it
Wii
was so
remotes.
popular. Yeah, that was so popular that Wii Sports is now the highest selling game of all time.
Really?
Well, it was bundled with a console. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
bundled in, so.
Well,
it
so
was-
Wow.
kinda
Sonic
your-
1 is the biggest selling on Genesis because it was bundled with it too, but it's
Yep.
also a great game. I mean,
Yeah.
I still think the biggest gaming sector in still growing exponentially is going to be just mobile. I mean, it's not what I usually play, but my mom plays Candy Crush for at least half hour a day, every day.
Yeah. I mean, they have a science behind it. Can't think of what the science is called at this moment, but I watched. Yeah, it's like basically, it's the rewarding system. Do this, get rewarded, and I mean, a lot of games use that, obviously for upgrades and everything, but they use it
Get the
to
lever,
get money.
get a treat. Yep.
That business model is so successful, but I hate it.
Me too.
It just-
I stopped playing it
literally,
because of it.
I wouldn't pay $2 for a game, but after I've got this free game, I'm willing to fork out $20 to buy gems.
Right.
or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Exactly. Yep. And by the way, the term for the Black Watchman type game is called permanent alternate reality game.
Yes,
PARG.
alternate reality game.
Yep. And that's
I played one back in 2001 called Majestic.
Ooh, nice.
It was just like Black Watchman, where it would call, fax, instant message you.
I
and
just
get
find that
phone-
so cool.
Yeah, fax.
Did it also do something on your beeper? Beep you on your beeper?
Well, you could if you set it up to do your beeper. But my wife didn't like that game because I would get phone calls at like 2 in the morning and threatening recording saying that people were hunting me or something.
Yomi Kibagami. People are coming to kill you. Yeah, I could see
Tell
why.
them at 2 in the morning.
But it was an amazing game, but what killed that was September 11th. And then EA
Oh.
was like,
Oh yeah.
oh, we better not do this game right now and put a
Yep.
pause on it.
Yep.
There's something about old games, isn't there?
Oh yeah, and I think if anything, of all the things that we're talking about, if we're gonna talk about the future of anything right now, is that everything is going back to the way it was. More and more games, big games, are 2D side-scrolling whatevers, platformers, crafting games, whatever you want to say it is. But either way, it's 2D, and it's side-scrolling. And there's a lot of top-down games coming out, and more and more games now are pixel because it's cool.
true.
It's cool to like
right.
pixel games.
It's an art style.
Mega Man
Yep.
9.
And there's a lot of free programs out there. Just like I mentioned about Game Maker, there's a lot of free programs too where you can make your own sprite art. You don't need to dish out a lot of money to do it. So, so I think more and more people are going to be making indie games because it's essentially
They
free.
can.
Yeah, it's free to make it, man. It's like that's why more and more people were
Before
making
you want to
music.
make a game, you had to shell out hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in order to get it going.
Exactly.
Kickstarter.
Now you got to drop a couple bucks on a program, maybe.
Yep, and to promote it, and to do distribution and all that stuff, like even to put something on Steam, like we were talking about Steam Greenlight, but it's not free to even submit your stuff on Steam Greenlight. You have to pay $150 to submit it, And then I think you have to pay even more money if you are greenlit to get your game up on Steam. I could be wrong about that last part, but I know for a fact you need to pay $150 to be on to at least submit one game.
Greenlit?
Yep. No, not to be greenlit, but to submit something on Steam.
Right, to
Greenlit.
go on the greenlit.
Yeah, to have people potentially butcher you and destroy your game in seconds by negative comments.
So it's an application fee of some sorts.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what it is.
I'm all for, because there's enough garbage on there as it is. So.
Yep.
I mean, there's some great games, but there's a lot of garbage.
It's needed. Yes, exactly. And you know, a lot of people complain about it, but that has to be there, or else exactly what we were just talking about. Anybody, including my 4-year-old daughter, could make a game if she wanted. In fact, she really is making a game on RPG Maker. But besides the point.
Fun fact, though, that submission fee for Greenlight actually gets donated to Child's Play, so they don't even get money from that.
That's amazing! I didn't know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's so. See, I mean, they did that to filter out, you know, the garbage. I'm not saying that, you know, I mean, I can't afford that, you know, $150 fee, but it doesn't necessarily mean like something I'd put out would be garbage. And same with the next person, but it does help. And then they don't even take a profit from it, which is pretty cool. I didn't even know that. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So closing statements here, guys. Let's start with Jay. What are your closing statements? Yes or no? Or are you kind of in the unsure about it?
I'm probably in the middle because I think we wouldn't have indie games without the AAAs.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of showing I don't want to make Call of Duty anymore. Let's make something more fun and unique.
Yeah.
So I think it'll still be rising up, but I don't think it'll take over because there's too many people who are into esports. That's probably going to hold strong for a while for AAAs.
Do you think esports might change directions soon, though, to something more indie? I mean,
I don't think
possible.
so. That group of people, it's a core, like...
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's their thing. That's
right. How about you, DPD? What do you think?
Well, I guess I'm in the middle, too. I mean, people will always buy those big blockbuster games, but and it's hard to say, I think. Like indie games, they are going to get popular, like No Man's Sky, in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to get overshadowed by those big shooters like Call of Duty and whatnot.
You don't think that one day, even someday soon, next 5 years, say, you don't think that eventually the indies will rise?
Well, more will rise, I think, but in the end,
right,
the big guys will dominate.
How about you, Katie? I know you can't talk, but you can type. What Jay said, she said. All right, so Katie said what Jay said. And let's move on to KB. What are your closing thoughts, closing statement?
I don't think indie's ever going to take over the bigger industry as a whole, because indie is, you know, it's people have a passion project. They want to tell a story or have a certain game and want that out there. And odds are that's not going to appeal to a mass market. A lot of the big ones that are appealing to a mass market are watered down to appeal to a mass market. So they're, by definition, it really can't be bigger. Are there going to be more indie games and in volume outsell major studios? I think that will happen slowly. And yeah, that's just my take on it. So I don't think it's going to surpass it, but that's not saying they're not amazing and high quality games. They're just not for everybody.
Right.
It depends on the game. Each, you know, because, you know, Papers, Please, I loved. People thought it was stupid and boring.
Right.
No Man's Sky, you know, I enjoy it.
Nova.
Hmm?
What are your thoughts?
I think that these big AAA games will always swamp the indie games in sales. But without the aspiring like game creators that we have and see all the time on Steam, that the gaming industry will just become so stale and lots of people would. So indie games, great thing, but they'll never
dominate.
They'll never surpass. They'll never dominate.
Yomi, what are your thoughts?
So question is,
do you think
will
that
indie games shape the industry?
Yep. Do you think that someday in the future?
Yes, I do believe that indie games will shape the industry. They won't outsell those big games and stuff, but the ideas and the out-of-the-box thinking these little indie companies will take in their games, and that I think some of the big games will probably adopt some of those things. My favorite movie of all time is The Matrix. And the Wachowski brothers, that bullet time stuff was the first of its kind back in 1999. But movies are continuing to use those effects and stuff like
Yes,
that.
they are. Yep.
And so I think the indie industry will shape the future of gaming in that some of the new ideas that are out of the box thinking that big companies will be afraid to take or afraid to do, they will see these in the games and probably adopt some form of those into the bigger games. That way I think it will shape the industry.
I think that indie games already shape the industry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Without these crazy ideas that happen all the time, that could maybe put pressure on these big companies to maybe do something else.
They can afford to take the risks that the big companies just can't afford to try.
Yeah.
I think Yomi made a great point bringing up just the movie industry in general. The film industry now, I would say more and more big movies, big studios are making movies that were completely shaped by indie films. And I think the same applies to the music industry, and I think it applies to the gaming industry as well. People are getting bored. People are getting sick and tired of experiencing and doing the same thing over and over again. You know, our lives, people's lives are becoming more hectic and frantic. People's lives are stressful. They come home and they want to kind of live outside of the moment. And it's hard to do that when you've already experienced the same thing over and over again. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with Alltheway J, DPD, Katie Reid, KnowBuddies LP, Supernova, and Yomi Kibagami, and myself for our first episode of our podcast. Guys, if you like this, feel free to download it if you're listening on SoundCloud. If you want to continue streaming it, it's also available on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, feel free to listen to it on SoundCloud. And all the links for all the wonderful people who participated, all their channels, YouTube channels, will be available in the description. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Until next time, I'm BuddhaCat. I'll see you later. Bye, guys. Bye.